So what am I doing gassing up at 4 a.m.? Well, I was recently invited to attend a retirement ceremony in Norfolk, Virginia, and decided that it would be a good trip to get some time on the motorcycle. Plotting out the course, I had a couple of route options. One that took me along the standard shipping routes that I've been on many times, and another that took me on a more southern route and through some of the areas of the country that I've not been through. That was an easy decision. When I looked at the mileage, it was in the 970 mile neighborhood. That's when I realized that this trip would be a great opportunity to attempt an iron butt Saddlesore 1000 ride. I already had a time limit and had to reach Norfolk in a single day. So I looked at the route and found an easy adjustment to increase the miles. But what is this iron butt thing? Iron butt is an association of riders who prove they can complete long rides in a specified time period. There are several ride options, with the shortest being the Saddlesore 1000. Ride 1,000 miles in a 24-hour period. I have ridden thousands and thousands of miles, but never this far in a single day. I've been intrigued by the idea for a while, but most of my riding is focused on comfortable day trips with a good deal of let's see where I end up involved. Other than that, it's mainly commuting. An iron butt ride requires a lot of precision and focus. You have to document the route and the mileage. Plus, you have to create a report with your ride log and proof that you made the trip. Since I was going to do better than 95% of one already, why not? So here I am on the first leg of my first attempt at a Saddlesore 1000.
So for the rest of the video, I'll just include some scenes from the day, and I'll throw in some of the approaches that I took to make sure that the plan worked out, and some of the things that seemed to work for me, and hopefully that'll be useful to you. So enjoy some good video of the ride, and hopefully some of this is helpful.
Completing a ride like this takes a bit more than just jumping on and seeing what will happen along the way. Because these rides get reviewed and certified, you need some discipline to succeed. Here's how I approached my attempt. First, the route. I spent a good deal of time looking at my route. I wanted to get the most out of my bike, and that meant mapping out exactly where I would be stopping for gas along the way. I could get about 190 miles on a full tank and reserve on my R1250RS. So I wanted the stops that would use most of the fuel, leaving a safe buffer in case any station turned out to be unworkable. For me, that meant aiming at 150 to 160 miles between stops. I plotted the whole route in Google and Apple Maps to be sure that I would cover the required miles with a bit to spare. Every stop would be at a major fuel chain where I could be sure to get a receipt and find them open and operating. Next, let's think about the bike. About a week before the ride, I gave my bike a full service. A fresh oil change and filter, new fluids for the coolant and the brakes, a good look at the tires and all of the equipment and make sure everything was working correctly. I put a good deal of thought into how to set up the bike for the ride. I would use both panniers and a large tail bag. I made sure that the items that I needed to access easily were readily available to reduce the rummage time along the way. This included snacks and water. The day before, I loaded all the items on the bike that I could so that I'd be ready to go without any major changes. Next, the gear. Just like the bike, I double-checked all of my gear beforehand. My ride would start early, with a bit of chill, and progress through the warmth of the day before I could count on the temperature drops in the evening. I made sure to have several layered options to quickly adjust at stops as needed. I also made sure that my helmet was clean and my pen lock was properly sealed. All my batteries were fully charged, as was my backup power bank. I made sure to have spares for essentials, including clothing and earplugs. Now let's talk for a minute about what is probably the most important thing, the rider himself. Normally, I'm a night owl. It's not unusual for me to get just 4 hours of sleep after being up until 3 a.m. This has never been an issue for me on my daily commute or any of my other recreational rides. It would not do for a full day of riding, though. For several days before the ride, I made sure to work on my sleep hygiene, getting ample rest, I also worked on shifting my schedule to allow for an earlier start. In addition to the rest, I spent the days leading up to the ride focusing on drinking more water, just plain water. Normally, I drink a lot of coffee or zero sugar soda, so I'm used to a good amount of caffeine. This means that I'm normally struggling to get enough hydration as well, since those other things tend to have the opposite effect. They also mean that I'm normally artificially stimulated most of the time. For the ride, I wanted to get my body used to less stimulation and able to go longer without required bladder-related stops. Alright, so along the way, you're going to need something to eat and drink. So let's talk about food and drink. For my ride, I packed a mix of dried fruit, jerky, some nuts, and a few other healthy snacks, focusing on options that are calorie and nutrient rich, which allows for less time eating along the way. Most of this was a quick bite after fueling and required no added prep time. I also had plenty of water in 1 liter bottles. One of these was always ready to go in the side pocket of the tail bag, so I could reach back and get it without getting off the bike. I did grab a single burger and a soda for lunch, and a little bit of an extended break, which is a bit lighter than my usual fare if I'm honest. This meant, though, that I was never really battling the afternoon food coma from a large or heavy meal. What's most important, though, is to make sure that you get a little bit in your stomach at every opportunity. Not a lot, just enough to keep the edge off. And also, water. Drink water at every stop. So that's all. Unless you find other fibers, yeah. 1,000 miles in 24 hours is a bit of a tall order without a little bit of discipline. Actually, a lot of discipline. That's especially true when it comes to your stops. When you're stopping, you need to have a plan. I plan my stops to have very specific purposes. 1, bike fuel. Make sure the bike gets a full tank. There's no point in stopping if you have to stop again sooner than you need. 2, record keeping. Make sure you document the stop for the certification. I actually messed this up on my second stop, where I took a picture of the receipt in front of my dash without the dash showing the mileage. So when I did my ride submission, I actually had to pull some video from my helmet cam to show that the receipt and the mileage were accurate. Next, not just bike fuel, but body fuel. Like I said before, water and a snack. I drink a full bottle of water, at least, during every stop. Next, get a little bit of activity. Walk around, move. Use the facilities as needed, and get off the bike a bit and just sort of clear your aches and pains. I always made sure that every time I stopped, I took off the helmet and took out the earplugs to let my head and ears get some fresh air as well. Every stop needed to meet these requirements. Having a routine for stops allowed me to get through them efficiently without burning too many minutes. My average stop duration was just under 16 minutes throughout the day, which included the 40-minute lunch break, so typical stop was only around 11 minutes. Gassing up and dealing with just the bike alone was typically a 6 to 7 minute ordeal, so the rest was really just walking in, using the facilities, splash a little water on your face, whatever. It's a good idea to practice this stop approach, or whatever you decide, before you tackle the ride itself. That way, if there's any bugs in your procedure, you could work them out before you actually start the ride. we should talk about health and safety. If, like me, you're at the age that makes youthful exuberance a long-lost memory, you'll likely experience some discomfort along the ride. My bike has a BMW Boxer engine with mid-controls and a stock seat. Yes, a stock seat. After a few hours, I began to feel the effects of being locked into the RS's riding position, especially below the waist. I made sure to have a bottle of ibuprofen ready to go, and I needed it on both trips. I also paid close attention to my general alertness. If I felt like I needed another couple of minutes at any stop, I took it. As I crossed into Virginia, I stopped at a rest area for a toilet and just to spend a couple of extra minutes off the bike walking around in between gas stops. The short break, some water on my head, and a little movement kept me alert and able to ride safely. This is also something to consider in the plan. Where I live, everything is flat and boring for a few hundred miles in most directions. Planning to leave early in the morning allowed me to churn through some of the least interesting part of the ride when I was freshly awake and excited about the prospect of the day, but before the sun came up, so you didn't have to look at as much of the boringness of it. By the time that wore off and the sun was coming up, I was only about an hour or so away from more interesting roads and better scenery. In the end, I completed my 1,030-mile ride in 18 hours and 17 minutes, including a total of 1 hour and 35 minutes of stop time. This was just 5 minutes longer than my plan, so I count that as a pretty good success. I was tired and had no problem getting to sleep at the hotel. So, would I do it again? Yes, definitely. In fact, I had originally planned on a 2-day return, going slow and taking in a few of the side roads along the way. It turned out, though, that I had a pop-up work requirement that meant that I had to be in Lexington, Kentucky by early afternoon on my departure day. This meant that I'd be taking a similar route on the way back, so I did my second Saddlesore 1000 only a day after my first one. So one way there, 1,000 miles to Norfolk, took a day to enjoy Norfolk, and then early the next day, 1,000 miles back. That ride was only 1,006 miles, so it's a little bit closer to the margin, and it took 17 hours and 16 minutes, including my brief work stop in Lexington. I've submitted each of these rides to the Iron Butt Association, and am hopeful they get approved, so more to come. Anyway, if you're thinking about a ride like this, check out the Iron Butt Association website. It's got all the details and all of the rules and regulations. It's a pretty cool thing. You know, there's tens of thousands of riders who've done it, and it's definitely a way to earn some chops on a motorcycle. It also gives you some respect for what your own capabilities are, and gives you an excuse to get out and see the world and have a little bit of wind. So take care, and more next time.